In the scorching summer of 1979, Margaret Thompson, a 34-year-old archaeologist and doctoral candidate from the University of Cambridge, specializing in ancient Egyptian engineering techniques, arrived at the Giza Pyramid Complex with an obsession that had consumed her academic career for nearly a decade. Uncovering evidence of advanced construction methods used by the pyramid builders that could revolutionize modern understanding of ancient Egyptian capabilities. Margaret had spent years studying the mathematical precision, astronomical alignments, and engineering innovations embedded within the pyramids, developing theories about sophisticated technologies that mainstream Egyptology had dismissed as impossible for the period. Traveling alone with her personal collection of measurement instruments, photographic equipment, and ground-penetrating radar devices that were cutting-edge for the late 1970s, Margaret had planned this expedition as the culmination of her doctoral R in November 1990, exactly 11 years after Margaret's disappearance, a joint international archaeological expedition led by Dr. Ahmed Hassan from Cairo University and Dr. Elizabeth Reisner from the Austrian Archaeological Institute, utilizing advanced ground-penetrating radar and seismic imaging technology recently developed for archaeological applications, made a discovery that would completely transform the investigation into the missing British archaeologist. The team had been conducting a comprehensive subsurface survey of the Giza Plateau to map previously unknown structures and chambers, when their equipment detected significant architectural anomalies approximately 12 kilometers southeast of the main pyramid complex, in an area of desert that had historically been considered archaeologically barren and devoid of ancient structures. The radar signatures indicated the presence of elaborate underground constructions at considerable depth, constructions that followed geometric patterns inconsistent with natural geological formations or known modern installations in the region. When excavation teams began physical exploration of the site, they uncovered a sophisticated network of underground chambers constructed with limestone blocks of exceptional quality, similar in technique and precision to those used in the pyramid complex, but apparently much older according to preliminary geological dating analyses. Within these hidden chambers, archaeologists discovered evidence that sent shockwaves through the international Egyptological community. Modern surveying equipment from the 1970s, cameras, measurement tools, and notebooks written in English in Margaret Thompson's distinctive handwriting. The notebooks, remarkably preserved by the dry desert conditions, contained entries dated between August 1979 and March 1983, indicating that Margaret had been alive and actively conducting research in these underground chambers for nearly 4 years after her official disappearance. Her notes described archaeological discoveries of revolutionary significance, hieroglyphic systems that predated known Egyptian writing, architectural techniques that employed advanced engineering principles, and references to the original builders, whom Margaret believed represented a pre-dynastic civilization with technological capabilities far exceeding traditional estimates of ancient Egyptian development. Most disturbing were Margaret's later entries, which described encounters with guardians of ancient knowledge who had allegedly guided her through secret passages connecting the main pyramids to this extensive underground network that stretched for kilometers beneath the desert surface. Margaret's notebooks revealed an increasingly complex narrative of her experiences in the underground chambers, describing her discovery of passages that connected the Great Pyramid to this vast subterranean complex through waterways and tunnels that had been hidden from archaeological investigation for millennia. According to her detailed observations, Margaret had found evidence that the pyramids were merely the visible components of a much larger architectural system that included underground cities, workshops, and libraries containing knowledge carved into stone walls that documented construction techniques utilizing principles of acoustics, electromagnetic resonance, and precision engineering that supposedly were not developed until modern times. Her photographs, remarkably well preserved in waterproof containers, showed hieroglyphic inscriptions depicting detailed diagrams of machinery, hydraulic systems, and construction methodologies that challenged fundamental assumptions about the technological limitations of ancient Egyptian civilization. More puzzling still, Margaret described interactions with entities she interpreted as ancient consciousness preservation systems, beings that had supposedly taught her to navigate the hidden passages and revealed secrets about the true purpose of the pyramids as technological devices rather than simple burial monuments. Dr. Hassan and his team faced an unprecedented archaeological dilemma. Margaret's notes described discoveries that contradicted established chronologies of Egyptian development, yet the physical evidence in the chambers corroborated many of her claims about advanced ancient technologies and sophisticated engineering techniques. Carbon-14 dating of organic materials found in the chambers produced contradictory results. Some artifacts appeared to be from pre-dynastic periods, as Margaret had suggested, while others showed impossible dates that implied recent activity in supposedly ancient sealed structures. Egyptian authorities, concerned about the implications of these discoveries for established archaeological narratives and tourism revenue dependent on conventional pyramid interpretations, initially classified the findings as confidential and restricted access to the excavation site. However, when international team members began reporting anomalous experiences during work in the chambers, equipment malfunctions, temperature fluctuations, and sensations of being observed by invisible presences, the official investigation was temporarily suspended pending further analysis of the site's unusual characteristics and potential safety concerns for research personnel. Professor Harrison, who had maintained his private search for Margaret throughout the 11-year period, was officially notified of the notebook discovery, but Egyptian authorities initially refused to provide complete access to her research or the excavation site, citing national security concerns and diplomatic sensitivities related to revolutionary reinterpretations of Egyptian cultural heritage. When Harrison finally obtained partial copies of Margaret's notebooks through British diplomatic pressure, he was simultaneously relieved and deeply disturbed by the revelations about his former student's final years of research. The notes indicated that Margaret had been living in the underground chambers, surviving on supplies she found in ancient storage areas and water from subterranean springs, while continuing her archaeological investigations in complete isolation from the outside world. More troubling was the gradual transformation of Margaret's writing style. Initial entries were scientifically rigorous and objective, but they progressively became more mystical and esoteric, with frequent references to communication with ancient intelligences and revelations about the cosmic purpose of the pyramid complex as a multidimensional portal system. The final entries described Margaret's plans to complete the ancient activation sequence and open the consciousness bridge that she believed she had discovered in the deepest levels of the underground complex. The International Archaeological Team, now operating under a consortium of academic institutions with enhanced safety protocols and monitoring equipment, resumed excavations with teams specifically trained to document the anomalous phenomena reported by previous researchers. During these renewed explorations, they discovered additional evidence of Margaret's prolonged presence, areas of the chambers that had been modified into living spaces, improvised laboratories where she had been analyzing archaeological samples, and libraries where she had been translating and interpreting the unknown hieroglyphic systems. The most disturbing discovery was a final chamber, sealed with stone blocks that Margaret had apparently positioned from the interior, containing her personal belongings arranged in ritualistic patterns, but no physical trace of Margaret herself. Her final notes, found in this sealed chamber, described a final transformation and her decision to merge permanently with the ancient consciousness matrix that she believed operated within the underground complex. The discoveries in Margaret's chambers attracted international attention from specialists in anomalous archaeological phenomena, researchers of lost civilizations, and scientists investigating ancient technologies that challenged conventional explanations of historical development. Dr. Michael Chen, a specialist in experimental archaeology from MIT, led a comprehensive analysis of the construction techniques documented in Margaret's notes, confirming that many of the architectural methods she described were theoretically sound, but required engineering knowledge that supposedly did not exist in ancient Egypt. The hieroglyphic systems photographed by Margaret were studied by teams of linguists and Egyptologists from major universities, who confirmed that they represented a completely unknown writing system that did not correspond to any documented period of Egyptian civilization. Even more perplexing, when researchers attempted to map the complete extent of the underground chambers using modern detection equipment, they discovered that the network extended far beyond what Margaret had documented, apparently connecting to similar structures beneath other pyramid sites and ancient monuments across a region spanning hundreds of kilometers. Geological analysis revealed that these structures had been constructed using stone cutting and positioning techniques that achieved tolerances more precise than those achievable with modern construction technology, suggesting methods of construction that remained completely unknown to contemporary engineering. During continued explorations, research teams began experiencing the same anomalous phenomena that Margaret had described. Electronic instruments malfunctioned in predictable patterns. Temperatures fluctuated dramatically without environmental explanation, and team members reported consistent sensations of invisible observers in the deeper chambers. Several researchers experienced vivid dreams, in which Margaret appeared to provide guidance about navigating the chambers and accessing hidden knowledge, dreams that proved remarkably accurate in terms of actual underground geography and previously undiscovered passages. Dr. Reisner, initially skeptical about these non-scientific aspects of the investigation, began systematically documenting these phenomena when she realized they followed consistent patterns and provided verifiable information about the chamber structure and contents. In 1993, 4 years after the initial chamber discovery, the site experienced a series of events that completely defied rational explanation and forced authorities to reconsider the fundamental nature of the archaeological findings. During a documented nighttime expedition recorded by multiple cameras and monitoring equipment, research teams captured footage of human figures moving through areas of the chambers that were confirmed empty by thermal sensors and motion detectors. The figures, which appeared briefly in recordings before vanishing, showed characteristics consistent with Margaret Thompson, according to colleagues who reviewed the footage. Simultaneously, seismic monitoring equipment registered construction activity, sounds of stone cutting, movement of massive blocks, and operation of unknown machinery, emanating from depths that supposedly had not been explored by modern humans. When research teams descended to investigate these activities, they found new chambers that had not existed in previous mappings, chambers containing evidence of recent construction and modification performed using techniques that matched exactly the methods described in Margaret's notebooks. Egyptian authorities, facing international pressure to provide explanations for these inexplicable phenomena, established a multinational scientific committee to study the site under more rigorous research protocols. The committee, including physicists, archaeologists, psychologists, and specialists in anomalous phenomena, began systematically documenting events that seemed to demonstrate Margaret's continued presence in the underground chambers in a form that transcended conventional scientific understanding. They recorded architectural modifications that appeared overnight, new hieroglyphic inscriptions that materialized on previously documented blank walls, and measurement instruments that Margaret appeared to continue using for her research, despite the absence of any detectable physical form. The original notebook, stored under controlled conditions, began displaying new entries written in Margaret's characteristic handwriting, entries that appeared spontaneously and described real-time archaeological discoveries in areas of the chambers that researchers had not yet explored. The Margaret Thompson phenomenon evolved throughout the 1990s into something that transcended traditional categories of archaeological research, becoming an interdisciplinary study involving quantum physics, consciousness research, and experimental archaeology in an effort to understand the broader implications of her discoveries and continued presence. Dr. Sarah Williams, a specialist in altered states of consciousness from the Institute for Consciousness Research in California, proposed that Margaret had experienced some form of transformation that allowed her to exist simultaneously in multiple dimensions of reality, maintaining her research capabilities while transcending normal physical limitations. This theory gained credibility when comparative analysis of Margaret's new notebook entries with independent archaeological discoveries revealed that she was providing information subsequently verified by excavations at other Egyptian sites, information that could not have been known through conventional means. The underground chamber site became a center of pilgrimage for researchers of paranormal phenomena, alternative archaeologists, and spiritual seekers who believed Margaret had achieved some form of elevated consciousness state that provided direct access to ancient knowledge. Egyptian authorities, recognizing the unique scientific and tourism potential of the site, established the Margaret Thompson Research Center as an official facility for studying anomalous archaeological phenomena, attracting researchers and visitors from around the world. Professor Harrison, now in his 70s, had become the official guardian of Margaret's memory and the primary interpreter of her continued communications, regularly reporting new archaeological revelations that Margaret provided through dream appearances and spontaneous modifications of her original notebooks. Modern investigations using satellite technology, deep penetration radar, and geophysical analysis confirmed many of Margaret's claims about the massive extent of the underground complex, revealing connections that extended to structures beneath the Valley of the Kings in Luxor and possibly to sites in Sudan, suggesting a network of underground constructions that spanned the entire ancient Nile civilization. In the new millennium, Margaret Thompson's legacy had fundamentally transformed academic Egyptology, forcing a complete re-evaluation of ancient Egyptian technological capabilities and opening new research directions into prehistoric advanced civilizations that might have preceded traditional pharaonic culture. Major universities established specialized programs in anomalous archaeology that used Margaret's case as a model for investigating other sites where similar phenomena had been reported but previously ignored by conventional academia. Modern technology finally enabled more sophisticated exploration of the underground chambers, revealing architectural structures that incorporated principles of acoustic engineering, astronomical alignment, and electromagnetic field manipulation that suggested purposes far more complex than simple burial or storage functions, traditionally associated with Egyptian underground constructions. The unknown hieroglyphic systems documented by Margaret were partially deciphered, revealing texts that described construction technologies using stone resonance, acoustic levitation, and cutting methods utilizing concentrated light energy, concepts that resonated surprisingly with modern theories of quantum physics and laser engineering. Margaret's continued communications, documented through multiple media over more than 2 decades, provided a corpus of archaeological knowledge that had been independently verified on numerous occasions, establishing a scientific precedent for non-conventional forms of historical research and consciousness-based archaeological investigation. The Egyptian government, recognizing the international importance of the site, established the Thompson Protocols for investigating anomalous archaeological phenomena, protocols that have been adopted by other countries with archaeological sites where similar events have been reported. Professor Harrison, now in his 80s, continued visiting the chambers regularly, reporting that Margaret maintained her active research and occasionally provided warnings about threats to archaeological preservation worldwide. Margaret's latest communications suggested that her transformation was part of a broader phenomenon related to knowledge guardians who protected ancient technologies until humanity developed sufficient wisdom to use them responsibly. Today, more than 4 decades after Margaret Thompson's initial disappearance in the Great Pyramid of Giza, her story continues evolving as a phenomenon that transcends traditional categories of archaeological, historical, and scientific research. The Margaret Thompson Research Center has become an international leading institution in the study of advanced ancient technologies, expanded consciousness phenomena, and non-conventional historical research methodologies that have revolutionized multiple academic fields. The discoveries initiated by Margaret have led to official recognition of at least 15 archaeological sites globally where similar phenomena of continued presence of disappeared researchers have been documented and studied systematically. Modern virtual reality technology allows visitors to experience recreations of the underground chambers based on Margaret's notes and photographs, providing educational experiences that have inspired a new generation of archaeologists, physicists, and consciousness researchers. Major universities now offer courses in transpersonal archaeology that utilize methodologies developed from Margaret's case to investigate aspects of ancient civilizations that were previously considered beyond the scope of academic research. Professor Harrison, now in his 90s, continues serving as liaison between Margaret and the international research community, reporting that she had predicted many of the most significant archaeological discoveries of recent decades and continues providing guidance about sites requiring urgent protection. The original chambers where Margaret physically disappeared in 1979 remain active as research sites, with international teams regularly documenting new architectural modifications, emerging hieroglyphic inscriptions, and evidence of continued construction performed by methods that still defy complete scientific explanation. Margaret's legacy had demonstrated that the boundaries between archaeological research, scientific exploration, and personal consciousness transformation were far more fluid than traditional academia had recognized, opening completely new possibilities for understanding both our ancestral past and our future potential as a conscious species capable of accessing knowledge that transcends conventional temporal and dimensional limitations.